another issue that's big this year is environmental regulation and protecting the environment. When are we going to see the North Slope spill analysis and the risk management that I think Governor Palin started? That's sort of been due out since June. Is that?
I haven't been briefed on that. This summer I called all the spill prevention, actually it was probably late spring, early summer, I called all the major spill prevention response organizations from Cook Inlet to the North Slope, Prince William Sound, to make sure that they were able to respond to any incident here, because I understood that they were sharing resources with the Gulf for the Deepwater Horizon, which I think is entirely appropriate, but I wanted to make sure that they had the ability to meet spills here and to prevent them. When it comes to those reports, I don't have an answer for you because I don't know when they will be complete.
Okay.
So.
It seems like they'll be important because they're supposed to sort of give us a status check about sort of where the aging infrastructure is, and how likely it is that it's going to rupture the road or whatever. And so it just kind of seems that with the cost of kind of refurbishing some of that, and then the fact that the oil companies are saying, you know, they're not really that serious about investing in Alaska. I mean, do you see that some people?
Well, I don't agree with that that premise. But go ahead and ask the question.
Well, some people worry that we'll see the state sort of lighten up on the oil companies in terms of environmental regulation, environmental protection, in order to sort of give them a reason to repair the infrastructure and do some things that might need to be done.
We're not going to sacrifice our environment for expediency. I mean, and frankly, most of the people, doing this work, making these decisions, are Alaskans who, we don't want to do anything to harm the place where we live. In fact, the state has stepped up inspections, as I understand it, on the North Slope, and if you talk with folks about the differences between the Deepwater Horizon and the shallow water of the Gulf, and the inspections that are already ongoing when it comes to the equipment used, we have kind of the gold plate standard here. Now, does that mean we'll never have a spill? No, but it means that other jurisdictions look to Alaska for how to do it right. We already did it wrong back in the 80s, and the Exxon Valdez occurred. And thank God we haven't had anything like that since. But it's in part because we have one of the best prevention and spill response systems in place. Can we do better? Absolutely, and I'll work for that.
Okay, and so truly the risk analysis is not being sort of hung up for waiting until the election's over.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I haven't even had anybody ask me about it, for months at this point. So.
Yeah, we're just told it's in the hands of the top DEC officials and that it's done. It's just been there since June. So,
conspiracy theories abound. It's that time of year.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and then sort of switching topics here since we're moving quickly.
Yeah.
Another report that is overdue is the rural report.
The rural sub-cabinet?
Yeah, and so that is, I guess, supposed to be a discussion of what should happen in the rural communities in the bush. And what's your general feeling about population shifts to the urban areas, and whether some of these communities are going to be dying out, and should they, and that sort of whole general thing?
Well, I'm going to be addressing AFN this week, and you'll be able to see my focus there. But rural Alaska, I mean, we're all Alaskans, and we all deserve a quality education. We all deserve safety in our homes and our communities. We all deserve infrastructure at a certain level that the Constitution requires. And we have worked diligently and hard to build economies in rural Alaska. And I think about, we tend to think about areas like Southwest Alaska, and we can talk about that, or Northwest, but I can give you a real-life example in Southeast Alaska where Southeast village residents now come to train at the core drilling program at UAS, University of Alaska Southeast, and they're now being employed at Kensington Mine. That kind of a model works in this state, where we can provide the job training in these communities and we can provide the jobs through resource development. Red Dog Mine is a huge example of how the Northwest Arctic Borough residents have been benefited through economic development and job training. So along with that, we've got the social issues and the high suicide rates, the domestic violence, sexual assault. As you know, I'm pursuing 15 new village public safety officers a year in rural Alaska, and that comes from the heart of a person who says no Alaskan should have to wait 3 days to 1 week when they call for help after being beaten up as part of a domestic violence incident, nor should they have to wait for a sexual assault investigation. Our citizens deserve better than that, which is why I look back to my tenure in the legislature, and my recollection is that in the 90s, late 90s, when I was finance co-chair, we had probably 93 village public safety officers. When we came into office in this term, we were down to 43. Well, since then, we have raised that now, and I'll be able to quote the number here later this week, but it's somewhere in the low 80s at this point. So we've made great strides in putting law enforcement into villages where there was none when we came in. And that's an element that I think, I know you'll see me continuing to focus on. But I'm going to have to run. We have to wrap up.
Just looking back over the last year and a half that you've been sort of the chief executive, anything you wish you'd done differently, done better?
No, I think the one thing that I would spotlight that we haven't talked about is the constant federal intervention and encroachment. John Katz, who's served, I'm his 8th governor now, he serves in the office of the governor in Washington, D.C. He served Democrats and Republicans, governors of Alaska. He will tell you that Alaska has never been under such, I'll call it an assault. He's more diplomatic than I, but such an active regulatory bureaucracy where Interior, EPA are constantly widening the breadth of their regulatory authority here. So when Endangered Species Act listings, critical habitat areas, marine spatial planning, when the logjam timber sale gets held up in Southeast, stellar sea lions, polar bears, I can go down the list. These are these efforts to extend the reach of the regulatory powers of the federal government diminish our opportunity here. And I have made it my cause to stand up for Alaska when I think those decisions are not based on science and are not based upon law. So for example, when the Secretary came to Alaska, stands up in a press conference and says, yes, there's a moratorium on the Arctic Ocean and OCS drilling, he cannot do that under the law. Federal law requires him to provide us notice, opportunity to be heard, the opportunity to comment on something like that, and a written decision. And so I will take, I'll take that to, I'll take him to task for that and sue over those kinds of actions by the federal government. So that's about it.
There wasn't really a moratorium though.
Well, actually there is. Do you see any drilling? I mean, this is his argument, right? His argument, my argument is, you declared an Arctic moratorium in front of the Senate Energy Committee when Senator Murkowski was there. You declared a moratorium in your press release of May. You declared a moratorium when you stood up in front of the press conference here. Now, what is a moratorium? It's inaction, right? It's a failure to take action. So that's a legal battle right now, but
I understand your point. It's just that even Shell Oil says there's no moratorium, and so they have a difficult time sort of dealing with the moratorium. They're more just trying to get their permits.
Absolutely. Well, and they can't stand up because if they do, they're going to get retaliated against. But we can stand up. So.
Okay, and
all
I
right.
think that's a successful effort then, that you're the sort of smacking back against the federal government.
I do. I think I can point to Kensington Mine as a success. When the federal government walked away from that appeal, my administration stepped up. We said, no, we're going to appeal this. There are hundreds of jobs at stake. Last August, September, U.S. Supreme Court said, no, you go get those jobs. They didn't. They took the state's position, and now people are working at Kensington Mine because the state did stand up. But it's not just lawsuits. So when the logjam timber sale was held up by the Secretary of Agriculture, or by the Department of Agriculture, I appealed just directly to the Secretary and said, look, we've got a sawmill here, Prince of Wales Island, that's dependent upon getting these logs. And here are all the reasons why I think you should act to turn loose this sale, this timber sale. Well, guess what? This summer, I was on Prince of Wales Island, and I saw, 30 or 40 young people working in the mill, and there were logs from the logjam timber sale stacked up that they were milling. And to me, that's a success. And it didn't take litigation to get there. I mean, I'll talk with them, persuade them, but when that fails, we're going to sue them.